Okay, so we've downloaded the thing. Now we can go ahead and install it. So you want to click this thing right here in the bottom once it's finished downloading. Myself, I've already downloaded it, so I'm going to go over to my desktop where I downloaded it and double click it there. Either one works. Pull this over. Okay, so we get this MySQL installer. Now you may have to restart your computer after you install all this stuff. In fact, I probably recommend that you do that just to make sure. A little message. Do we want to on? Yes. Okay, so it's gathering some information. Now this can take a little while to install, so that's why I sort of put it on its own video. But we'll walk through it and see what we can see, and should be fun. Okay, MySQL installer 1.4. If it's a different version by the time you watch this video, no big deal. Okay, so there's a bunch of different things we can install. We can go full, we can go custom. We probably want this developer default, and it installs with all the products that we need for development purposes. So go ahead and click that already. It's already clicked. You just go ahead and click next. If you want to go back and look through here, these are the type of things that comes with it. The SQL Server itself, a shell, a router, the MySQL Workbench, which we're definitely going to use, MySQL for Excel. I don't know what that is, some other things. So go ahead and just click next. Now, there's some weird requirements. It says 3. Version of Python has not been installed, but we installed version 3. So it doesn't really matter. We can just ignore these. If you want to try and fix them manually, you can, but I think you could just ignore this. I always have in the past. So click next. Want to continue? Yes. Okay, so these are all the things it's going to install, right? So we can just go ahead and click execute and let it just do its thing. So it can take a while to do this, or sometimes it could be very speedy. It just sort of depends on how your computer, how fast it is, and how ornery it is, I think. So already we've got MySQL Server installed. Next, we're working on the Workbench. And these two things, these top two things, the Workbench and the server, those are the two most important things that we really need. You probably need some of this other stuff, but it's not that important. Down here at the bottom, samples and examples. We'll actually look at that just to get an idea of what we can do with the database. You know, there's like fake data in there that we can play with, and we'll play around with that a little bit. But it's not terribly important that you install all that stuff. MySQL documentation, you can take a look at that if you want. I don't think I ever have, but it's in there if you want to take a look at it. But that should be cool. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video because this is going to take a while to install. We'll go ahead and pick this up as soon as it's finished. Okay, so everything has installed. It has been completed. We can go ahead and click next. Okay, so now these things need to be configured. Click next here. We just want this standalone MySQL Server thing at the top, the default. That works fine. Click next. All of these things we can keep as the default. Recognize here this port 3306, sort of important. Don't really need to make a note of it, but just keep that in mind. TCP/IP, all these things. We don't really care about any of this stuff. Just click next. Okay, so it's going to ask for a password. And, well, first it wants to use strong passwords. So that's good. Go ahead and click next. Okay, so every time, so you've got your database, right? It has a user, and then that user has a password. And in order to connect to the database, especially from like Python, you need to know the password and the username. And most of the time, the username is just root. That's just what it is. But then we need to pick a password. So if you're going to be serious about this stuff, if you're going to use this for like actual web development stuff, pick a very strong password. We're not going to be, and we don't really care. So I'm just going to type in password 123. Let me do that again. Password 123. Repeat it. Password 123. Again, I'm not suggesting you do that because you can see right here it's very weak. But just for our purposes of learning this thing, it doesn't really matter, so that's fine. Now, you don't need to add a user because root already is a user, so we're going to be the root user. In computer science, root is like the all-powerful super user. It's called the root user. So just for your information. So go ahead and click next. We want to configure MySQL Server as a Windows service. That's fine. We can leave all these things as the default. Okay, so now we just click this execute to apply all those things we just did, which wasn't much anything. We took the default for most of those things. All right, and you can see now it's initializing the database, which means it's turning it on. And this will, I think, pop up, or the database will turn on in the background, I think, every time you start your computer. Now you can configure it not to do that if you want, but it's going to be on from now on. And that's good because we don't want to have to turn it on every time we want to access it from our program. We want it sort of just running in the background always. But if you don't want that, you can change the settings. I'll leave that to you. It's pretty simple. You can just Google it or something. All right, so let's see. I'm going to go ahead and pause this again while it goes through all these, and we'll pick it up as soon as it's finished. Okay, so all of the things have finished, and we're pretty much done. So we can click this finish thing. Oh, no, we need to configure some other things. So go ahead and click next. We don't want to click this. This NODB cluster thing is not something we want any part of. So click finish. Next again. We want this standalone server thing, yes. Okay, so let's go ahead. It wants us to type in our password. Remember, that's just password 123. Check. All connections succeeded. And this just runs a little test to make sure it's running, that we are able to connect to it, that our password works and all that stuff. So that's good. Next. One last execute, I think. Okay. So we're done with that. It's like start MySQL Workbench after setup. Actually, let's not do either of those. You can if you want. You go ahead and click this, but I'm going to show you how to start it from scratch. So in the future, you could start it without having to go through all this again. So go ahead and click finish. And I think we are done. So in the next video, we'll dive right in and start learning how to connect Python to MySQL and make sure everything was set up correctly and move on from there.